November 14th, 1942, Kasserine Pass, Tunisia. The captured M1 Garand rifle lay across the wooden field table, its walnut stock still bearing traces of North African sand. Major Heinrich Vollmer of the Wehrmacht's 334th Infantry Division lifted the weapon, surprised by its weight and balance. Serial number 4-10583, manufactured at Springfield Armory, belonging to a soldier from the 1st Infantry Division's 16th Regiment who would not need it anymore. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. The rifle represented something Wehrmacht officers had begun encountering with increasing frequency across North African battlefields, a fundamental shift in infantry firepower that contradicted German assumptions about American military capability. This was not simply another enemy weapon captured in combat. This was evidence of an industrial and tactical philosophy that would force German commanders to confront an uncomfortable truth about the changing nature of infantry warfare. Vollmer worked the operating rod, feeling the smooth action of the gas-operated system. 8 rounds, semi-automatic, 43.6 inches long, 9.5 pounds. The specifications seemed modest on paper, yet German infantry companies across Tunisia were reporting something that troubled senior commanders. American rifle squads were delivering sustained volumes of fire that seemed impossible for the number of men involved. Wehrmacht tactical doctrine built around the Karabiner 98K assumed that enemy infantry, armed with similar bolt-action rifles, would fire at comparable rates. German machine gun crews provided suppressive fire while riflemen maneuvered. The system worked against British, French, and Soviet forces armed with bolt-action rifles requiring manual cycling between shots. But American infantry squads, equipped with M1 Garands, were breaking that tactical equation through sheer volume of aimed fire. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. The mathematics of small arms fire were being rewritten not through superior marksmanship or tactical brilliance, but through engineering simplicity that American industry had perfected over decades of civilian firearms development. The Germans had focused on precision manufacturing of sophisticated weapons. The Americans had mass-produced reliability that simply refused to require the manual bolt cycling that slowed German rifle fire to a fraction of American capability. Late 1942 marked the American Army's baptism in ground combat against Wehrmacht forces. Operation Torch brought inexperienced American divisions into contact with battle-hardened German units that had fought across Poland, France, and 2 years of North African campaigns. German commanders expected easy victories against green American troops still learning combined arms warfare. The tactical reality proved far more complicated than German intelligence assessments had predicted. American infantry units demonstrated alarming firepower despite their lack of combat experience. German after-action reports from Tunisia began documenting a pattern that confused tactical analysts. American rifle squads were suppressing German positions with volumes of fire that suggested far more men than actually existed. A German infantry squad in 1942 consisted of 10 men built around the MG-34 or MG-42 machine gun. The machine gunner and his assistant provided the squad's primary firepower. The remaining 8 riflemen carried Karabiner 98K bolt-action rifles, each holding 5 rounds in an internal magazine loaded via stripper clips. The squad leader typically carried an MP-40 submachine gun for close combat. This organization reflected German tactical doctrine developed through decades of military theory and refined through actual combat experience. The machine gun dominated squad tactics. Riflemen existed primarily to protect the machine gun and exploit opportunities the machine gun created. Individual rifle fire served mainly to supplement machine gun fire rather than provide primary suppressive capability. American rifle squads in 1942 followed different organizational principles that reflected different tactical assumptions. A 12-man American squad included a sergeant, a corporal, and 10 riflemen. One man carried the Browning automatic rifle, providing automatic fire capability. The remaining 11 men carried M1 Garand semi-automatic rifles, each holding 8 rounds in an en-bloc clip that fed from above into the rifle's receiver. The tactical implications of this organization became apparent when German and American infantry engaged at typical combat ranges of 100 to 300 meters. A German rifleman armed with a Karabiner 98K could fire perhaps 10 to 15 aimed shots per minute under combat conditions. The bolt action required the soldier to unlock the bolt, pull it fully rearward, push it forward to chamber a new round, and rotate it to lock before firing again. This manual cycle disrupted the shooter's firing position and point of aim, requiring reacquisition of the target after each shot. An American soldier, armed with an M1 Garand, could fire 40 to 50 aimed shots per minute, 3 to 4 times the rate of fire his German counterpart could achieve. The semi-automatic action meant the soldier simply pulled the trigger, let the gas-operated system cycle the action automatically, and pulled the trigger again without moving his hands from firing position or disrupting his sight picture. The 8-round capacity provided additional advantage by reducing reload frequency compared to the 5-round and capacity of German rifles. When multiplied across an entire rifle squad, these individual advantages created cumulative effects that fundamentally altered small unit tactics. 11 American riflemen armed with M1 Garands could collectively deliver 400 to 500 rounds per minute of sustained aimed fire. 8 German riflemen armed with Karabiner 98Ks could deliver perhaps 80 to 120 rounds per minute. The American squad possessed roughly 4 times the sustained firepower of its German equivalent in pure rifle fire, before considering the BAR or German machine gun. German company commanders encountering American infantry for the first time in Tunisia reported confusing tactical situations where small American units pinned down larger German forces through sheer volume of fire. Intelligence officers analyzing these reports initially attributed the firepower to larger American squad sizes or to American troops expending ammunition wastefully through undisciplined fire. Neither explanation proved correct when Wehrmacht units captured American positions and counted enemy dead. The real explanation lay in the hands of every captured American soldier. The M1 Garand represented a fundamental shift in infantry weapon design philosophy that American ordnance officers had embraced, while European armies remained committed to bolt-action rifles that differed little from weapons carried in the trenches of the First World War. John Cantius Garand, born January 1, 1888 in Saint-Rémy, Quebec, had moved to the United States at age 11 when his family settled in Connecticut. He worked various jobs in textile mills and tool-making firms, developing the mechanical expertise that would later prove invaluable in weapons design. During the First World War, he submitted a light machine gun design to the United States Navy. While his design was rejected, the Navy offered him a position as a weapons designer. He transferred to Springfield Armory in Massachusetts in 1919, beginning a career that would span over 3 decades and produce one of history's most successful military rifles. The United States Army had recognized during the First World War that bolt-action rifles limited offensive infantry tactics. Soldiers armed with bolt-action Springfield M1903 rifles could not maintain effective suppressive fire while advancing. The requirement to manually cycle the bolt after each shot meant that advancing soldiers chose between moving or shooting, unable to do both effectively simultaneously. This limitation meant infantry attacks depended on machine guns and automatic rifles for suppressive fire, while riflemen provided aimed fire only during pauses in movement. American tactical theorists, developing new infantry doctrine in the 1920s, emphasized fire and maneuver tactics, where infantry squads advanced under their own organic firepower rather than depending entirely on external support. This doctrine required individual riflemen to maintain effective fire while moving, something impossible with bolt-action rifles. The solution required a semi-automatic rifle that allowed rapid aimed fire without manual action cycling. Garand began developing semi-automatic rifle designs in the early 1920s, experimenting with various operating systems and locking mechanisms. He explored primer-actuated designs, then moved to gas-operated systems that used propellant gases to cycle the action. By 1932, he had patented a gas-operated design that would become the M1 rifle. The weapon used a long-stroke gas piston positioned below the barrel, driven by gases diverted through a port drilled in the barrel. The piston drove an operating rod that rotated the bolt to unlock it, extracted and ejected the spent cartridge, then chambered a fresh round from the 8-round N-block clip. The United States Army officially adopted the M1 in 1936, making it the first semi-automatic rifle to serve as standard issue for any nation's military forces. Initial production at Springfield Armory proceeded slowly, with only 100 rifles per day being manufactured by September 1939 when Germany invaded Poland. Production accelerated through 1940 and 1941 as American rearmament gained momentum. By January 10, 1941, Springfield Armory was producing 600 M1 rifles daily. By December 7, 1941, when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, the United States Army considered itself fully equipped with M1 Garands, though many Marine Corps units continued using bolt-action Springfield M1903 rifles into 1943. This production achievement represented American industrial capability that German intelligence analysts struggled to comprehend. Springfield Armory alone manufactured over 3 million M1 rifles during the war. Winchester Repeating Arms Company produced over 500,000 additional rifles. Harrington and Richardson Arms Company, International Harvester Company, and other contractors contributed hundreds of thousands more. Total production exceeded 5.4 million M1 Garand rifles by war's end, more than enough to equip every American soldier and Marine who saw combat. The M1's design reflected American manufacturing philosophy developed through decades of civilian firearms and automotive production. The rifle used interchangeable parts that required no hand-fitting during assembly. Components manufactured at different contractors' facilities could be mixed freely without adjustment. This standardization, routine in American industry, remained largely theoretical in German weapons production, where each manufacturer introduced subtle variations requiring custom fitting. The rifle's gas system proved remarkably reliable under field conditions. Unlike complex gas trap systems that German engineers had attempted in their own semi-automatic rifle programs, the M1's simple gas port drilled directly through the barrel proved immune to the fouling and carbon buildup that plagued German gas trap designs. The operating rod ran in a channel beneath the barrel, protected from mud and debris that would jam more exposed systems. The rotating bolt locked into the receiver with 2 large lugs that provided positive lockup, capable of handling the powerful 30-06 Springfield cartridge's 50,000 pounds per square inch chamber. Pressure. Field stripping for maintenance required no tools beyond the rifle itself. A soldier could disassemble the M1 using only the rifle's combination tool stored in the buttstock, allowing cleaning and maintenance under field conditions without specialized equipment. German rifles, by contrast, often required armorers' tools for disassembly beyond basic field stripping, limiting soldiers' ability to maintain their weapons without technical support. The 30-06 Springfield cartridge fired by the M1 delivered 2,805 feet per second muzzle velocity from the rifle's 24-inch barrel, providing effective range exceeding 500 yards. This matched or exceeded the performance of the German 7.92 by 57 mm Mauser cartridge fired by the Karabiner 98K, which achieved 2,477 feet per second. The American cartridge delivered substantially more kinetic energy at all ranges, providing better penetration of cover and greater stopping power against enemy personnel. Wehrmacht soldiers who survived encounters with American infantry units armed with M1 Garands consistently reported their surprise at American firepower. German tactical training had prepared them to face enemy infantry, armed with bolt-action rifles firing at rates comparable to their own weapons. The reality of facing semi-automatic fire from multiple American riflemen simultaneously proved psychologically devastating even before accounting for actual casualties inflicted. Private Wilhelm Hoffmann of the 334th Infantry Division recorded in his diary after an engagement near Kasserine Pass in February 1943. The Americans shoot constantly. We fire our rifles, work the bolt, fire again. They fire without pause. We thought they must have many more men than intelligence reported. But when we counted their dead, we found only a squad where we expected a platoon. Each American rifleman fires like 3 Germans. This cannot continue. We need better weapons or more men. This observation appeared repeatedly in German unit after-action reports from Tunisia. American rifle squads delivered firepower disproportionate to their actual strength. German commanders initially attributed this to American tactical doctrine, emphasizing aggressive expenditure of ammunition without regard to conservation. This explanation satisfied German officers trained to carefully manage ammunition consumption and emphasize disciplined aimed fire over volume. Americans, they reasoned, simply wasted ammunition through undisciplined firing. Captured American rifles told a different story. Wehrmacht units that overran American positions in the early North African campaigns collected M1 Garands for evaluation. These rifles found their way to Wehrmacht equipment depots, where ordnance officers could examine captured enemy weapons. Unlike captured Soviet, British or French rifles that differed little from German bolt-action designs, the M1 represented fundamentally different engineering philosophy and tactical approach. German ordnance officers examining captured M1 Garands immediately recognized the weapon's sophistication and reliability. The gas-operated system functioned smoothly through hundreds of test firings without malfunction. The rotating bolt locked solidly, despite using relatively loose tolerances compared to German precision manufacturing. The N-block clip system, while unusual, proved faster to load than stripper clips used with bolt-action rifles. 8 rounds could be inserted into the rifle in a single motion, compared to the careful alignment required to load 5 rounds via stripper clip into a Carabiner 98K's internal magazine. The simplicity of the design impressed German engineers accustomed to complex weapons requiring skilled craftsmen for assembly. The M1 used relatively few parts compared to German rifles, yet proved more reliable under field conditions. American manufacturing tolerances that would be considered sloppy by German standards somehow produced rifles that functioned flawlessly under combat stress. This contradiction between German precision manufacturing philosophy and American mass production reliability troubled Wehrmacht technical officers who examined the weapons. But captured rifles alone could not convey the full tactical impact of equipping entire infantry divisions with semi-automatic weapons. That understanding came through bitter experience in combat, as German infantry faced American firepower across Tunisia, Sicily, Italy, and eventually France and Germany itself. The Battle of Kasserine Pass in February 1943 marked the first major engagement between American and German forces in Tunisia. German commanders expected easy victory against inexperienced American troops still learning combined arms tactics. The initial German assault achieved tactical success, driving American forces back and inflicting heavy casualties. But even in defeat, American infantry demonstrated disturbing firepower that German veterans found unsettling. Oberst Rudolf Lang, commanding officer of the 21st Panzer Division's 104th Panzer Grenadier Regiment, wrote in his February 20, 1943 after-action report, "American infantry resist stubbornly despite their lack of experience. Their rifle fire exceeds anything we have encountered from British or French forces. During our assault on American positions near Sidi Bouzid, my companies faced continuous rifle fire from defending positions that should have been quickly overrun. The Americans maintained fire discipline and volume that pinned my men despite our tactical superiority. Only our artillery support and panzer cooperation allowed us to dislodge them." These observations spread through Wehrmacht tactical analysis channels as more German units encountered American forces. Intelligence officers began collecting reports, specifically addressing American small arms capability. The pattern became undeniable. American infantry squads delivered rifle fire volumes that German doctrine considered impossible without automatic weapons or substantially larger unit sizes. German weapon designers had not ignored semi-automatic rifle development. The Mauser Selbstladegewehr 1916 represented an early attempt at a semi-automatic military rifle, but proved too complex and unreliable for service use. The Walther Selbstladegewehr 41, adopted in limited numbers in 1941, used a gas trap system similar to early M1 prototypes. This complicated mechanism proved failure-prone under field conditions, particularly in the dust and mud of the Eastern Front. The discovery of large numbers of Soviet SVT-40 semi-automatic rifles during the invasion of Russia in 1941 had prompted renewed German interest in semi-automatic rifles. Soviet forces had fielded the SVT-40 in substantial numbers before the war, intending to replace the Mosin-Nagant bolt-action rifle as standard issue. German engineers examined captured SVT-40s and noted their simpler gas piston system that proved more reliable than German gas trap designs. This examination led to the Gewehr 43, adopted in 1943, which borrowed heavily from the SVT-40's gas system design. The G43 proved reliable and accurate, representing Germany's most successful semi-automatic rifle program. But production remained limited compared to American M1 manufacture. Germany produced approximately 400,000 G43s between 1943 and 1945. The United States produced over 5 million M1 Garands during the same period. This production disparity reflected fundamental differences in industrial capacity and strategic priorities. American industry devoted massive resources to M1 production, because semi-automatic rifles represented standard equipment for every infantryman. German industry produced G43s, primarily as designated marksman weapons, supplementing bolt-action rifles rather than replacing them. Wehrmacht infantry companies typically received only 10 to 20 G43s per company, compared to American companies where every rifleman carried an M1. The tactical implications became more apparent as German forces fell back across Italy through 1943 and 1944. Wehrmacht units defending prepared positions faced American infantry assaults supported by devastating volumes of rifle fire that suppressed German defenders more effectively than German commanders thought possible from rifles alone. American infantry doctrine emphasized aggressive fire and maneuver tactics, where riflemen advanced under cover of their own squad's rifle fire, using the M1's rapid fire capability to suppress enemy positions while other squad members maneuvered. This tactic proved devastatingly effective against German defensive positions organized around machine gun strongpoints. German machine gun crews found themselves under constant rifle fire from multiple directions as American squads used fire and maneuver to flank German positions. The traditional German response of having riflemen protect the machine gun proved inadequate when American riflemen could deliver suppressing fire volumes approaching machine gun rates. Lieutenant Klaus Schmidt of the 356th Infantry Division's 767th Grenadier Regiment recorded his tactical analysis after defensive fighting near Anzio in March 1944. "We organized our defense according to doctrine, with machine gun positions mutually supporting and riflemen deployed to protect the guns. The Americans attacked with infantry squads using tactics that isolated our machine guns through rifle fire that pinned our riflemen. Their riflemen advanced while others fired continuously, providing cover. Our riflemen could not return comparable fire because working the bolt disrupted their aim. By the time they chambered another round, American riflemen had changed positions. The American rifle gives them tactical flexibility we cannot match with bolt-action weapons." Wehrmacht tactical schools began incorporating lessons learned from fighting American infantry into training programs for replacement units. Instructors emphasized the need for aggressive use of machine guns and concentrated fire to suppress American riflemen before they could establish fire superiority. But these tactical adjustments could not overcome the fundamental mathematical disadvantage of facing an enemy where every rifleman possessed firepower approaching that of a light automatic weapon. German soldiers captured by American forces provided additional intelligence about Wehrmacht perceptions of American small arms. Prisoner of war interrogation reports from 1944 documented consistent themes. German infantrymen universally respected the M1 Garand's firepower and reliability. Many captured German soldiers expressed frustration that their own army had not provided comparable weapons despite Germany's reputation for technical sophistication. One interrogation report from July 19, 1944, recorded statements from Obergefreiter Hans Dietrich of the 352nd Infantry Division, captured near Saint-Lô in Normandy. "Your rifle is superior to ours in every way that matters in combat. It fires as fast as you can pull the trigger. It never jams, even covered in mud. The 8 rounds mean you reload less often than we do with 5 rounds. In close combat, your men shoot 3 times for every shot we fire. This gives you enormous advantage. We were told German weapons were the best in the world. After fighting Americans, we know this is propaganda. Your rifle proves American industry can build better weapons than German craftsmen." These sentiments appeared throughout prisoner interrogation reports from all theaters where American forces engaged Wehrmacht units. German soldiers recognized they faced a significant equipment disadvantage in individual rifles, an admission that contradicted Nazi propaganda about German technical superiority. The psychological impact of this realization demoralized German infantry, who had been assured of their material superiority over American forces. The M1's reliability under harsh field conditions particularly impressed German soldiers accustomed to weapons requiring constant maintenance. The Karabiner 98K proved reliable under most conditions, but required regular cleaning and maintenance to function properly. The M1 functioned reliably under conditions that would disable more complex weapons. American soldiers in Italy and France fought through mud, rain, and winter conditions, where German rifles required frequent cleaning to prevent freezing or fouling. The M1 continued functioning with minimal maintenance, testament to robust design and generous manufacturing tolerances. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. German attempts to use captured M1 Garands faced practical obstacles that limited their effectiveness. Unlike captured Soviet rifles that fired the same 7.92 by 57 mm ammunition as German weapons, the M1 fired the American .30-06 Springfield cartridge. German forces could only use captured M1s as long as they had captured American ammunition, which ran out quickly without resupply. This ammunition incompatibility meant captured M1s served mainly as trophies or training aids rather than practical combat weapons for German forces. Some German units in desperate circumstances during the final months of the war used captured American weapons, including M1 Garands, when ammunition could be obtained from overrun American supply dumps. The 10th SS Panzer Division captured substantial American equipment during Operation Nordwind in January 1945, including rifles and ammunition. German soldiers who used captured M1s universally praised the weapon's performance, but logistical reality meant these remained temporary expedients rather than standard equipment. The Battle of the Bulge, in December 1944, provided German forces their last major offensive opportunity against American armies. Wehrmacht commanders planning the offensive studied American defensive capabilities extensively, including analysis of American small arms firepower. Intelligence assessments warned that American infantry units would resist stubbornly using their superior rifle firepower to slow German advances, even when tactically surrounded. These predictions proved accurate during the desperate defensive fighting around Bastogne and other critical locations. American infantry units, surrounded by German forces, maintained cohesive resistance through effective use of their organic firepower. The M1 Garand allowed small American units to defend positions that would have been quickly overrun if armed with bolt-action rifles. German infantry assaulting American positions faced withering rifle fire that inflicted heavy casualties and slowed attacks long enough for American reinforcements and air support to arrive. Major Joseph Worth, operations officer for the 206th Infantry Division attacking near Bastogne, recorded in his December 22, 1944 situation report. American infantry defending the perimeter maintained devastating fire volumes despite being surrounded and cut off from supply. Our assault companies suffer casualties approaching 50% in some platoons attempting to break through American lines. The Americans fire constantly. Our men advance, fire, work the bolt, find new cover, fire again. The Americans fire without pause, pinning our infantry in the open. We require artillery preparation for every assault, wasting ammunition we cannot spare. The American rifle makes every soldier a source of continuous fire. This multiplies their defensive capability beyond what their numbers suggest. Wehrmacht tactical analysis of the Ardennes offensive concluded that American infantry firepower had been significantly underestimated in planning. German commanders expected that surrounding American units would quickly exhaust ammunition and be forced to surrender. Instead, American units maintained effective resistance through careful ammunition management and devastating use of their semi-automatic rifles' rapid-fire capability. The 8-round capacity meant American soldiers could engage multiple targets during each reload cycle, making their ammunition last longer than German estimates predicted. The final campaigns in Germany during 1945 saw German defensive forces increasingly composed of hastily trained replacements, older reservists, and young conscripts lacking combat experience. These poorly trained troops faced American infantry divisions that had refined their tactics through years of combat experience. The combination of American tactical proficiency and superior rifle firepower proved overwhelming to German defenders whose morale and combat effectiveness had declined markedly from earlier war years. German officers commanding these depleted units consistently reported to higher headquarters that American rifle fire made defensive positions untenable without extensive fortification and artillery support. Infantry companies that had successfully defended similar positions earlier in the war now found themselves pinned down and overwhelmed by American fire and maneuver tactics that exploited the M1's firepower advantage. Oberstleutnant Friedrich Weber, commanding the 744th Grenadier Regiment during defensive fighting near the Ruhr in March 1945, submitted a detailed tactical assessment that reflected German acceptance of American small arms superiority. We face American infantry armed with semi-automatic rifles that provide continuous fire. Our men armed with bolt-action rifles cannot return effective suppressive fire. The Americans advance under cover of their own rifle fire. Our men shoot once, work the bolt, shoot again. But by then the Americans have moved to new positions. We cannot match their tactical flexibility. The American rifle allows them to shoot and move simultaneously. We must choose between shooting or moving. This fundamental disadvantage makes successful defense impossible without overwhelming artillery support, which we no longer possess. This admission represented a remarkable shift from German confidence at the beginning of the war. Wehrmacht forces had entered combat in 1939, convinced of their tactical and technical superiority over all potential enemies. By 1945, German officers openly acknowledged that American infantry possessed equipment advantages that German industry could not match. The M1 Garand symbolized this broader American industrial and technical superiority. Post-war analysis by German military historians examining Wehrmacht performance during the Second World War consistently identified American small arms, particularly the M1 Garand, as providing significant tactical advantages that German forces never effectively countered. The Federal German Army, when it formed in the 1950s, equipped its infantry with semi-automatic rifles from the beginning, reflecting lessons learned about the importance of individual soldier firepower. The M1's influence extended beyond its direct tactical impact. The rifle demonstrated that semi-automatic weapons could be manufactured reliably in massive quantities using mass production techniques. This proof of concept influenced post-war small arms development worldwide. The Soviet AK-47, adopted in 1947, incorporated lessons learned from both German assault rifle development and the M1's proven reliability. The American M14, adopted in 1958, represented direct evolution of the M1 design, adding selective fire capability and a detachable magazine while retaining the basic gas-operated rotating bolt system. But these post-war developments lay in the future during the Second World War. Between 1942 and 1945, the M1 Garand provided American infantry with a measurable firepower advantage over German soldiers armed with bolt-action rifles. This advantage translated into battlefield success across every theater where American and German forces engaged. The production statistics told the story of American industrial mobilization. Springfield Armory manufactured 3,176,639 M1 rifles between 1937 and 1945. Winchester produced 543,737 rifles between 1941 and 1945. International Harvester contributed 346,584 rifles between 1953 and 1956 for Korean War requirements. Harrington and Richardson produced 428,699 rifles. Total M1 production exceeded 5.4 million rifles by the end of all production runs, not counting rifles manufactured for foreign military aid during the 1950s and early 1960s. This massive production reflected American industrial capacity that Germany could never match. The United States entered the war with enormous manufacturing infrastructure developed through decades of civilian production. American factories building automobiles, tractors, and civilian firearms converted to military production using existing equipment and skilled workers. The transition from civilian to military production proceeded smoothly because similar manufacturing techniques applied to both applications. Germany lacked comparable industrial depth. German civilian automobile production before the war remained limited compared to American standards. The Volkswagen program promised affordable cars for German workers since 1934, but delivered fewer than 1,000 civilian vehicles by 1939. This limited automotive industry meant Germany lacked the broad manufacturing base and skilled workforce that American industry possessed. When war came, German industry struggled to expand production while simultaneously converting to military requirements. The M1 Garand represented American industrial philosophy applied to military requirements. The rifle incorporated automotive manufacturing principles, including interchangeable parts, simplified assembly sequences, and quality control systems that ensured consistent performance across millions of rifles manufactured at multiple facilities. German weapons manufacturing, by contrast, retained traditional craftsman approaches that produced excellent individual weapons, but could not achieve comparable production volumes. Wehrmacht soldiers fighting against American infantry recognized this disparity even if they did not understand its industrial origins. They knew that every American soldier carried a semi-automatic rifle, while most German soldiers carried bolt-action rifles. They knew that American rifles rarely malfunctioned while German attempts at semi-automatic rifles proved unreliable. They knew that American ammunition supplies seemed unlimited, while German forces rationed ammunition carefully. These practical realities mattered more than propaganda about German technical superiority. The psychological impact of facing an enemy armed with superior individual weapons eroded German infantry morale as the war progressed. Wehrmacht soldiers could accept fighting against superior numbers or better equipment in specific categories. But the knowledge that every American rifleman possessed better weapons than German infantrymen challenged fundamental assumptions about German military excellence. This psychological disadvantage compounded the tactical disadvantages the M1 created. German weapons designers attempted to respond to American semi-automatic rifle superiority through various programs. The Gewehr 43 represented their most successful effort, producing a reliable semi-automatic rifle in significant numbers, but production never approached levels needed to equip all infantry units. The Sturmgewehr 44 assault rifle, introduced in limited numbers in 1944, represented an attempt to leapfrog American semi-automatic rifles by providing selective fire capability in an intermediate cartridge. This innovative weapon proved highly effective where available, but remained too scarce to significantly impact overall Wehrmacht small arms capability. The fundamental problem remained German industrial capacity. Even if German designers produced superior weapons, German factories could not manufacture them in quantities needed to equip millions of soldiers across multiple fronts. American industry, by contrast, produced adequate weapons in overwhelming quantities that ensured every American soldier carried standard equipment. The M1 might not have been theoretically perfect, but 5 million M1s equipped across all American infantry proved far more valuable than 400,000 technically sophisticated G-43s distributed to selected units. This lesson about the primacy of production quantity over theoretical technical superiority applied across all military equipment categories during the Second World War. The Sherman tank's reliability advantage over German tanks paralleled the M1's advantage over German rifles. The B-17 bomber's defensive firepower advantage over German bombers reflected similar American design philosophy, emphasizing practical effectiveness over theoretical optimization. In every case, American weapons emphasized reliability, maintainability, and mass production over pursuit of theoretical perfection that could not be manufactured in adequate quantities. German military planners entering the war had failed to appreciate how industrial capacity would determine outcomes in modern mechanized warfare. They assumed that superior training, tactical doctrine, and technically advanced weapons would overcome numerical disadvantages. This assumption proved correct in short campaigns against enemies who could not fully mobilize their industrial capacity. But against the United States, with its vast manufacturing infrastructure and resources protected by oceanic barriers, German assumptions proved fatally flawed. The M1 Garand symbolized American advantages that extended far beyond individual rifle performance. The weapon represented an industrial system that could design, manufacture, and field millions of complex mechanisms, while simultaneously building tanks, aircraft, ships, and every other weapon needed to fight global war. The rifle demonstrated American ability to apply mass production principles to military requirements without sacrificing quality or reliability. Most importantly, the M1 proved that adequate weapons available in overwhelming quantity outweighed superior weapons available in limited numbers. Wehrmacht officers examining captured M1 Garands in 1942 and 1943 gradually reached this understanding through bitter experience. The rifle itself impressed German technical experts who appreciated its design, elegance, and manufacturing quality. But the existence of millions of these rifles in American hands forced recognition that Germany faced an enemy whose industrial capacity exceeded German capabilities by orders of magnitude that made victory impossible regardless of German tactical skill or soldier courage. Major Heinrich Vollmer, who examined the first captured M1 at Kasserine Pass in November 1942, survived the war and later wrote about his experiences during the North African campaign. In his 1963 memoir, Fighting in the Desert, he reflected on the moment he first held a captured American rifle. "I understood immediately that we faced an enemy whose industrial power exceeded anything we could match. The rifle in my hands represented not just a weapon, but an entire manufacturing philosophy that could produce such sophistication in quantities we considered impossible. Every American soldier carried this rifle. We could not provide equivalent weapons to even a fraction of our troops." At that moment in Tunisia, though the war had years left to run, I knew Germany would lose. The rifle told the truth that propaganda concealed. American industry could outproduce German industry while building better weapons. Mathematics determined the outcome before tactics could matter. This realization spread through Wehrmacht officer corps as the war progressed. Initial confidence in German military superiority eroded through accumulated evidence that American forces possessed better equipment across most categories. The M1 Garand served as tangible proof that American soldiers fought with material advantages that German soldiers could not match. This understanding demoralized German forces even before accounting for actual battlefield defeats. The contrast between German and American rifle development reflected broader differences in national industrial development and military procurement philosophy. American ordnance officers had recognized in the 1920s that future warfare required increased individual soldier firepower. They invested in developing a semi-automatic rifle that could be mass-produced reliably. This long-term investment paid dividends when war came, providing American infantry with weapons that exceeded enemy capability. German military planners, by contrast, focused on perfecting existing weapons and developing revolutionary new technologies like jet aircraft and guided missiles. Semi-automatic rifles received lower priority than these more exotic programs. When German forces encountered the reality of facing American semi-automatic rifles in combat, German industry lacked the capacity to respond effectively while simultaneously supporting ongoing programs. The result left German infantry armed with obsolescent bolt-action rifles, facing American infantry armed with semi-automatic weapons throughout most of the war. This pattern repeated across multiple equipment categories. American forces entered combat with adequate weapons available in overwhelming quantities. German forces fought with sophisticated weapons available in insufficient numbers. American industrial mobilization emphasized reliable production of proven designs. German industrial efforts scattered resources across too many programs without achieving decisive advantage in any category. The cumulative effect gave American forces material superiority that proved decisive when combined with numerical advantages and Allied cooperation. The Battle of the Bulge represented Germany's last major offensive and demonstrated how American material advantages, including the M1 Garand, prevented German tactical success even when German forces achieved surprise and local numerical superiority. American infantry units armed with M1s mounted effective improvised defenses that slowed German advances long enough for American reserves to deploy. The rifle's firepower allowed small American units to hold positions that would have been quickly overrun if armed with bolt-action rifles requiring manual cycling between shots. German commanders planning the Ardennes offensive had hoped that winter weather would ground American aircraft, neutralizing American air superiority. They expected to achieve breakthrough using massed armor supported by infantry, relying on tactical surprise to offset American numerical advantages. The plan assumed that American infantry units cut off from support would quickly surrender when surrounded. These assumptions proved incorrect, partly because American infantry firepower allowed isolated units to maintain cohesive resistance despite being surrounded. The defense of Bastogne epitomized American infantry capability under siege. The 101st Airborne Division and attached units held the town against repeated German assaults, using superior rifle firepower and discipline to inflict heavy casualties on attacking German forces. American soldiers surrounded in Bastogne fired their M1s with devastating effect, making every German attack costly regardless of German numerical advantages at specific assault points. The 8-round capacity and rapid fire rate meant American soldiers could engage multiple targets quickly, maximizing the effectiveness of limited ammunition supplies. German infantry attacking Bastogne reported the same experiences that Wehrmacht soldiers had described throughout the war when facing American forces. American rifle fire seemed continuous and overwhelming. German soldiers armed with bolt-action rifles could not suppress American positions effectively enough to allow successful assault. The tactical disadvantage of bolt-action versus semi-automatic fire proved decisive in numerous engagements around the Bastogne perimeter. By January 1945, the German offensive had failed. American forces had contained the breakthrough and begun counter-attacking. Wehrmacht units withdrew, having suffered heavy casualties while failing to achieve operational objectives. Post-battle analysis identified American infantry firepower, including the M1 Garand's contribution, as a key factor preventing German success. Even when surrounded and outnumbered, American infantry maintained firepower superiority over attacking German forces through superior individual weapons. The final months of the war in Europe saw German defensive capability collapse under combined pressure from Soviet forces advancing from the east and American and British forces advancing from the west. Wehrmacht units defending Germany itself consisted increasingly of poorly trained replacements, unable to effectively use even the weapons available. But even well-trained German veterans at this stage recognized they fought with obsolescent equipment against enemies possessing material advantages that made German defeat inevitable. American infantry advancing into Germany in 1945 faced German forces whose combat effectiveness had declined dramatically from earlier war years. German soldiers surrendered in large numbers, recognizing the hopelessness of continued resistance. Those who fought did so more from discipline and fear of Soviet revenge than from any realistic hope of victory. The M1 Garand provided American infantry with firepower advantage that accelerated German collapse by making defensive positions untenable against American assault tactics. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe. The story of the M1 Garand in German hands remains mostly a story of German soldiers examining captured rifles and recognizing their inferiority. Unlike captured German weapons that Allied forces sometimes adopted for use when superior to Allied equivalents, the M1 represented American equipment that German forces could not effectively utilize due to ammunition incompatibility and could not replicate due to industrial limitations. The rifle stood as testament to American industrial and technical capability that Germany could not match. Wehrmacht officers studying captured M1 Garands reached uncomfortable conclusions about relative American and German capability. The rifles demonstrated that American industry could produce sophisticated weapons in quantities that seemed impossible by German standards. They proved that American manufacturing philosophy, emphasizing reliability and mass production, achieved better results than German emphasis on precision craftsmanship when applied to military requirements. Most devastatingly, they showed that every American infantryman carried weapons superior to those available to most German soldiers, revealing industrial disparity that made German victory impossible regardless of tactical skill. The mathematics were simple and brutally clear when German officers honestly assessed the situation. An American infantryman could fire 40 to 50 aimed shots per minute with his M1 Garand. A German infantryman could fire 10 to 15 aimed shots per minute with his Karabiner 98K. This 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 firepower advantage per soldier multiplied across entire divisions created American firepower superiority that German forces could not overcome through tactical excellence or superior training. American industry had produced over 5 million M1 rifles by war's end, ensuring every American infantryman and Marine carried this weapon. German industry produced fewer than 400,000 G43 semi-automatic rifles during the same period, a ratio of more than 13-to-1 in American favor. This production disparity meant that while every American soldier possessed semi-automatic capability, most German soldiers carried bolt-action rifles throughout the entire war. The contrast extended beyond pure numbers to fundamental questions about industrial mobilization and national priorities. The United States devoted enormous industrial resources to ensuring every soldier carried adequate equipment as standard issue. Germany distributed resources across too many programs without ensuring basic infantry equipment reached adequate standards across all units. American soldiers entered combat knowing they possessed superior individual weapons. German soldiers fought knowing that American infantrymen carried better rifles, creating psychological disadvantage that compounded tactical problems. The influence of the M1 Garand extended far beyond its direct battlefield impact. The rifle proved that semi-automatic weapons could serve as standard infantry equipment rather than specialized weapons for selected personnel. This proof of concept influenced post-war small arms development worldwide. Modern military forces universally equip infantry with semi-automatic or automatic weapons, accepting as obvious what seemed revolutionary when the M1 entered service in 1936. The rifle's legacy lives in every modern military rifle that assumes rapid-fire capability as baseline requirement for infantry weapons. For German military forces, the M1 represented a lesson about the decisive importance of industrial capacity in modern warfare. Wehrmacht tactical excellence and German soldier courage proved insufficient against enemies who could field superior equipment in overwhelming quantities. Post-war West German military planners internalized these lessons, ensuring that the Bundeswehr emphasized reliable equipment available in adequate quantities, rather than pursuing technically sophisticated weapons that could not be produced in numbers needed. The story of Wehrmacht officers studying captured M1 Garands ultimately tells a larger story about how industrial capacity determined the Second World War's outcome. Germany entered the war believing that tactical skill and superior training would overcome material disadvantages. This assumption proved correct against enemies whose industrial mobilization lagged behind their military commitments. But against the United States, whose vast industrial capacity and resources remained protected by oceanic barriers from direct attack, German assumptions proved fatally wrong. The M1 Garand symbolized American advantages that extended across all military equipment categories. The rifle demonstrated that American industry could design weapons that worked reliably under combat conditions, manufacture them in quantities that equipped every soldier, and continuously improve production quality through feedback from combat experience. German industry struggled to match American capability in any of these areas, despite Germany's reputation for engineering excellence and technical sophistication. The 8-round superiority that the title references represented more than simple magazine capacity. It symbolized American ability to provide every infantryman with semi-automatic firepower, while German industry could only provide bolt-action rifles to most soldiers. Those 8 rounds fired without manual action cycling between shots gave American soldiers firepower advantage that translated into tactical success across every theater where American and German forces engaged. The captured M1 Garands that German officers examined told them a truth that propaganda could not conceal. America possessed industrial capability that Germany could never match, making German defeat inevitable once American forces fully deployed. Wehrmacht officers who studied those captured rifles understood this truth, even if they could not openly express it while the war continued. The rifle in their hands represented the arsenal of democracy operating at full capacity, producing weapons that equipped millions of soldiers while simultaneously building everything else needed to fight global war. No amount of German tactical skill or soldier courage could overcome such overwhelming material advantage. The M1 Garand proved this mathematical certainty through simple, reliable operation that required no elaborate explanation. Every captured rifle told the same story. America had won the industrial war before the shooting stopped, and industrial victory determined military outcomes in modern mechanized warfare.